Okay, so welcome. This is Michelle Oliver, and I am here today with Lisa Michelle Zega, and she works with women in midlife primarily to help them move from whatever grief they are experiencing into more of a full life. So she takes them through the whole spectrum from grief counseling all the way through life coaching. And we are so excited. I'm so excited to have you here today. This is a conversation that we have been talking about having for a while. And I know for me, it's a conversation I have been wishing I had someone to have it with. So it wasn't just me in my head for year after year after year. So I'm very, very honored to have you here today. And I'm thrilled that we're going to address this. And the topic is narcissism. And Lisa Michelle, welcome. I just want to say welcome and thank you for being here to start.
I am excited to see where this spontaneous conversation leads us.
Mhm.
And I too, just for our listeners, was so excited when you and I began having these conversations because I'm also wanting to have this conversation and then wanting to have it publicly for the benefit of others. So I'm excited that we will be talking about
Yeah.
narcissism.
Yeah, so these, when you said publicly, that's a big leap, right? And I
Yeah.
mean, even in my logo, it says candid conversations, right? I've been kind of like leading the way for where I want to go. And within that same logo, it is about curiosity,
Mm.
courage, and creativity. So I think it's always a really good starting point to start with just being curious about a topic. And the reason we have chosen well, I don't know why you're here, but the reason that I chose narcissism, or the thing that has really been on my mind for literally a number of years, has been that I was struggling. I don't like that word anymore, but I was truly struggling with what appeared to me to be a singular event in my life that really left me very traumatized and highly dysfunctional, disempowered, basically dis everything, just kind of like on the floor in a puddle of tears, really, really traumatized and stressed out. And coming from that event, what I perceived as like a singular event, um, I did not understand what was happening. And when I started to explore, and where we usually often go when we're in these places is Google it. What's wrong with me? Help me, Google. Like we go to God and then we go to Google, the jealous God of Google. That's a terrible joke, but it's true. We Google it, and YouTube University pops up, and we start watching and educating. And this was the first time I discovered that narcissism was even a thing. I mean, I knew the story from
Mhm.
school, right? The Greek mythology, but I didn't really realize it was a thing. And boy, did I drink the Kool-Aid. Like I started thinking, oh my gosh, now I understand. Now I understand why I'm having these terrible feelings and why I'm experiencing all of this. And as I progressed through my experience with narcissism, I went through a transformation. And we've talked a little bit about this offline, but this is kind of where I'd like to start with today. This idea of narcissism being a very trendy topic right now,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
what that means to people. And so I think I'll just kind of toss the ball to you and we can go back and forth.
Well, I'm wondering if you're willing to share what the event was that led you, because and if not, I have an event, but I'm thinking about myself trying to follow our conversation
Okay.
and wanting a point of identification.
Reference. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Okay, so my event was being involved in a relationship where I was ghosted. And after, a significant period of time, which significant, I guess it was a little over a year, being ghosted. And then I was ghosted for about 6 months. And then I started experiencing being pulled back in, and in narcissistic terms of, like, when you watch all the videos, you learn these things. So I'm sure our audience, if they've even listened this far. So there's this idea that you're breadcrumbed, you're hoovered, you're shelved, it's like this cat and mouse, push and pull, trauma bonding, all of this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're ghosted, then they talk about gaslighting and all this stuff. There are all
Yeah.
these different levels of narcissistic behavior. And
Yes.
and I know we can talk about all of that and the personality disorder and everything, but what I'm really interested in is my transformation as
Yes.
a woman, as a human being, not blaming other people, but my experience of recovering and transforming. So
Yes.
that's where the power, and I don't know that a lot of people are really talking about that. So yeah.
Yes. Well, I want to bring in my own sort of historical marker, and with the motivation also of like what I am very, very interested in is my own evolution, my own transformation. And I'm interested in that for other people too, right? Because you already mentioned that I do a lot around grief work. And if you think of grief as like holding a hot rock, right? And the longer I'm holding it and gripping it, it's burning my own hand. And that's how I think about women who are processing what they've identified as, oh, I was in a narcissistic relationship. And
Mhm.
even though at first that rock might feel comforting or warm, it's like, oh, okay, it wasn't just me. I'm not crazy. I think that's the common thing of I'm not crazy. But if that's not processed and released in our own transformation, then we continue to get burned or wounded or right. And so with that being said, but I was married to someone for 23 years that a lot of people wanted to label as a narcissist.
Mhm.
The one thing that I have identified in myself, and I've since identified that this went way before this relationship, is within me or within my own history, is an experience of either being highly, highly praised or rejected and almost like demonized. Just the things that have been said to me. I believe that I have carried this imprinted story
Mhm.
where I, my own self, as my own human woman, am tempted to think I'm really great or I'm terribly awful. Now that pendulum swing is not every woman's experience. I'm simply saying how I've recognized some of my own trauma living in me. It's like I'm an either or experience, and noticing that split, and my transformation has been the integration of Lisa with Lisa, and then Lisa with God, and Lisa, and this isn't consecutively, but and with my community and my people, right? So back to you.
Yeah, I think this is really significant what you're sharing about the polarities and the two extremes, and that there's this existing story. And the first key really is self-awareness, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So when we become aware, and that's why that, sorry, that that initial relief that you mentioned, where we identify something is happening, right? There's some kind of discomfort or dis-ease in
Yeah.
my experience. And then the first thing we do, and this is where the fallacy begins, right? But it's just information. The first thing we do is look out there and think, who is doing this to me? Like, what is happening to me? That's our human nature.
Yes.
So then this awareness of to recognize, oh, there's something within me, and then we come eventually to realize, like, this is true in everything really, that the world is a mirror, right? It's showing back to us what's within our awareness
Yeah.
and what we identify with, our self-concept and all this stuff. And that's where the magic eventually and the power and everything lies with, and that relationship with God.
Yeah.
But I think it's so interesting the where the world will really support you in staying stuck at all these, where you could be progressing much more quickly. But the first thing is we're just looking for, um, what is the word? We're just looking for confirmation, for
Yeah.
someone to say, yeah, something is happening here, and it's,
Yes.
and you're being called to grow.
Yes.
So I love that. I think that is truly where we start. We acknowledge something's happening and we sit with it,
Yeah.
which is a huge part of it. Like, so something's happening, not like, okay, go kill this person or hurt someone or drink or drug or shut down that bad feeling. And
Yeah.
that's kind of where we start. So yeah, being aware. I love that.
It's so interesting because as you were talking, my mind started going back to narcissists. And I was like, I wonder what would have happened, just imagining, if he became aware that I like looking at myself. I'm just putting myself in his story. And now he's got that awareness. Now I know from my own human experience that that awareness elicits shame. That is the initial place. Like there's something wrong with you. You are bad. You are wrong. And then what does shame do? It elicits hiding. And then what does hiding do? It elicits, now I need to make it out there so I can be comfortable. And then we externalize it, right? So then, and narcissism, that's what we see, is this pointing, like making someone else the problem. So stick with me here because I'm just
Yeah.
having
No,
this awakening.
I'm loving where we're going. Go ahead.
I'm like, okay, but when I'm out there with the problem, now all my solutions are out there. So I'm
Yeah.
left naked and powerless. This
Yeah.
is not an acceptable place to be. And I think that's what you were saying of like, hey, yes, at first we feel comforted, confirmed, like you're not crazy. Yes, something is happening. But if I'm looking out there and I don't see the reflection in here, then like I said, I'm powerless. But back to my query about narcissists. Okay, I'm looking. I have the awareness that I like to look. I feel shame, right? That like outside of me entity that comes to judge and accuse and tell me that I'm isolated and alone and will never get to have companionship. And what if narcissists now turned and looked shame in the face and said, can I like to look at myself and be loved? I just feel like we would have a different experience. Instead of running from the very thing that's telling us that we are not okay, what if we look at it, agree, agree with the estimate of you like to look at yourself? We're not agreeing with the judgment of who you are. And I would say that, you know what, Michelle, that's probably my transformation, was really being able to look in that mirror and say some of the things that I didn't like to say about myself, not about my ex, not about my history with my family of origin, just about Lisa. You've probably noticed, in fact, Michelle's recording this, and I am loud. I am loud and I don't need to try to be loud. And can I look in the mirror and say, and that accusation comes to me in the shame cloak regularly. But she's not as powerful in my life because I have learned to look right at her and say, yes, I am loud. Do I get to be loud and be loved? That idea of compassion has helped me to look more honestly at things, at character, and have the kind of transformation that keeps Lisa getting to have her own fucking power. So that's my thought.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I really want to affirm everything you said, but I don't want to lose this thought. So I'm going to just kind of
Say
take
it,
that and go on. Okay.
please.
So I think the idea of reflection, like we were talking about the Greek myth, where the beautiful Greek god is, or he was the son of the river god or something. Anyway, so when you think about the idea of falling in love with the reflection to the point that you cannot take your eyes away from it,
Mm,
that's what happened to him. He wound up dissolving or dying or something, like crumbling, remember at the end? Um, so you're so in love with an image. So what came to my mind when you were talking, I was thinking about that, is that we do that with everything. So
yes.
if something happens and we get hurt, we look at and we fixate on the image, like we fall in love with the creation instead of the creator. So
Yeah.
we're identifying with the result rather than the cause. We're identifying with what happened out there instead, like our fulcrum of control is gone. We
Yeah.
have an understanding that we are spiritual, that
Yeah.
we have power within us to change and alter who we are and what we perceive based on what we're focusing on, really, or who
Yeah.
we choose to identify with. And that's when this whole victim, that's when there can exist a victim and a perpetrator. Because and what's really interesting is that there is some value in these polarities. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you'd never have sex if there weren't. I mean, why would you bother? You know what I mean? Like it's a dance. So
Yeah.
it's not that the polarity, I mean, everything in the world is based on polarity. But when you get fixated on the victim, then there has to be a perpetrator and you can't get out of that role. So that's what I was just thinking of, how we fall in love with the image. And the shame, I'll say one more thing about, because the shame is huge. Like we're going to have another talk just about shame. But when you become, if you become, and it's painful, because
Yeah.
it's painful to become aware of the reflection that you are doing this thing because of the shame. But the shame, oh my gosh, I lost my thought. The shame is self-imposed, because you mentioned love, that when you ask yourself, okay, can I be in love with looking at myself and still be worthy of like the love from the divine, right? Do I still exist as a worthy child of God or the universe or whatever you choose
Mm-hmm.
to call it? Can I still exist that and be in love with this reflection? Like, can I still play in these experiences and be worthy of God's love? It's kind of like the bottom line, right?
Well,
can I
what
allow myself to grow? So yeah.
well, you sparked a few different ways of thinking. So I'll start right away with the fact that you brought in the divine.
Mhm,
Okay. And so what I was like, yes, Michelle, I'm so excited you said that because you gave a framework even for my inquiry. Like if narcissists, right, can recognize I'm in love with my own image.
mhm,
Right there to recognize it, this is this is like mind-blowing to me. If I recognize that encounter and turn, I have now turned away from my own image. I'm addressing the shame full on, right?
mhm.
And then I ask, can I be in love with my own image and still be loved? And what I find behind shame is a benevolent maker who, because I am the image bearer of the divine,
Yep.
I literally come out of the womb worthy. I mean, I'm formed in the womb worthy. I come out worthy. But just like the first parents, Adam and Eve, shame makes its appearance in the garden as this outward entity to destroy. And I wrote these words down that you said at the beginning of our call. You said curiosity, courage, and creativity. And I love that you said that because I believe that is how we were made, for the joy of curiosity, for the joy of courage and creativity. And shame comes in to break, to sever that. So what if narcissists, what if imagining and examining and playing with the beauty, like what you said, and then shame comes and everything shuts down and narcissist hides, and it invites destruction. It invites the destruction of curiosity, the destruction of courage, the destruction of creativity. But for us to turn and look at shame right in the face and ask the question is to connect with the divine, to connect with ourselves. Narcissists in hiding, I'm just making all this up, but I'm like, was disconnected from himself, from other creatures. Like what's lost is in relationship. And when we think about um I do think shame and narcissism are just like hand in glove. When we think about a woman in a relationship like you or I were, and then that severs and we feel disconnected from ourselves and we're shamed for what we allowed, for what we endured. We're shamed for how we feel, and we ourselves desire to escape, to get out of, take shame's garment off. And then comes the, oh, well, that one is the perpetrator, the narcissist. And now I'm invited to not see where narcissism lives in me. Now, I'm just going to say one
Right.
more thing because I'm going super
Exactly.
far,
No,
but
no, go ahead.
the polarity that you put, you're like, hey, if there wasn't polarization, we wouldn't even have sex. And
Yeah.
I love that you gave my mind that imagery because I thought of sex and the integration and the union and the connection. So you've got these extremes and they come together and it's dangerous and it's exciting and it's
Huh.
curious and it's courageous and right? And it's this wow, beautiful creative expression. And when I examine the victim that lives in me, and when I examine the perpetrator that also lives in me,
Mhm.
and I come together in that connection, that integration, in the benevolence of a creator who loves me. It's like then I engage the very curiosity, courage, and creativity, the transformation that we're talking about. That's my experience.
I love it. Absolutely. And if you think about it, I mean, that's when the word creativity is perfect here because it's creation. I mean,
Yes.
the thing is that, yeah, it's all about integrating. And I know what allowed me to heal was a constant, first of all, it comes in stages. It's like grief, right? Grief comes
Absolutely.
in, and the horrible thing about grief is that, I mean, that's another conversation, but these tsunamis of emotion come at the most random times, right? I think everyone has had some level of that. But when, and I don't, that's another topic, I think. But when we're talking about this idea of narcissism, it's become so prevalent in our culture to label these things. Okay. And first of all, the shame wouldn't really even be there if we didn't have all of the constructs, the societal constructs which hold us in these belief patterns that,
Yeah.
well, it's not okay to do this, it's not okay to do that, and why are you enjoying yourself so much doing this, and where are the boundaries, and we're taught not to trust ourselves. I mean, that's just a whole rabbit trail of a nightmare
Yeah.
of where the shame is
Yeah.
coming from. But we've already embodied that, we've already agreed to these things, whether consciously or subconsciously, so we're going to feel the shame. But I think when the whole society is saying, okay, everybody's a narcissist. I mean, it's such a big thing right now. It's even like all over LinkedIn, which is really funny to me. The fact is that when I started looking at, okay, all I care about is feeling better. Like, I
Yeah.
need to be able to function. What is it going to take for me to do that?
Yeah.
And I started realizing that the very things that I was allowing to hurt me or allowing to feel victimized by were those qualities that were going to allow me to heal. So I
Yes.
had to
Well,
start.
say more about that, Michelle. Like unpack that, right? The things that were hurting were also the qualities that were going to help you heal. What? Tell me more.
Well, like one day I remember walking through my house. I was in the kitchen. I distinctly remember this. It sounds so silly, but I had this awareness that for once I was really depressed because I'd lost all kinds of stuff. Okay. I had this awareness of feeling good. And I was like, oh my God, where did that come from? How did that emotion and that feeling come to me? And I share this somewhere else in something course or something, that one day I was standing in the shower and I was like, oh my God, I just have to feel better. And I couldn't feel better. And I turned the water really, really cold. I didn't know about like Wim Hof yet or Iceman. Now I do. Um, and I stood there until I was literally shaking.
Hmm.
And when I got out, I was just like, I've got to shock myself out of this, just the chemistry in my body. And I got out of the shower. I was like, oh my gosh, I feel amazing. Like, what happened? And so I started to investigate these things. But what I'm talking about is self-awareness, and the next step is self-responsibility. So
Yeah.
once you have this subtle awareness that you can actually change your state. And I knew all
Hmm.
this stuff.
Hmm.
Like, I've
Hmm.
been teaching this stuff since I was in college, like change your physiology, change, all the Tony Robbins stuff and all of that. But when you're in it, it's really hard.
Yes.
So I had that little glimmer of awareness. And then I started thinking, okay, what did this person, why am I victimized? And then I, like you, looked back at all the things of my childhood, which I'd already spent years and years in therapy in the past.
Oh,
I've been through all this, right? Like, I know I'm way too smart. I'm way too educated. I'm way too enlightened. Why am I crushed by this? Well, that's another story too, right? Unhealed, whatever, wounds and all this kind of stuff. But it was an opportunity for me to say, okay, um, the very qualities, because I started studying everything on YouTube, all these qualities of selfishness, taking what I want, looking out for number one. And women do what? We're all empaths because we give until we die. We give, I mean, that's our role. We nurture, we help, your life over mine. We raise each other up, all that kind of stuff. So I was like, what if I just develop these qualities in myself of like, me first, I want that, so I'm going to take it. And, this is, I mean, I'm working on it. It's a big deal, but those are the things that allowed me to heal me
Well,
first.
it brings my mind is going back to the sex analogy that you gave. Like, because you were feeling victimized and you wanted to heal, and in that process you looked at the things that you felt victimized by, like someone else is
Right,
willing to take and then you're the one giving, and
right.
you began to integrate. Like, I mean, it's just funny because in my brain I'm like, you fucked yourself. I'm sorry.
That's hilarious. It's really true. I mean,
But in a good way, like this idea that you bring in the one, you bring in the other, and you did create something magical. It's like,
yeah.
oh, I'm used to giving, giving. What does it look for like for me to take what I want? And in that, you are experiencing, and like you're human, I'm human, so we continue to experience and to evolve, but you're experiencing a greater integration
Mhm.
within yourself. And that's the other thing that wow, it's just coming to me that because you, like, why do we reject the idea of taking what I want? Well, we judge it. We call it selfish. We think it's contemptible. We think it's like people, a good woman doesn't do that. And what you invited was, well, what do I want? What would it look like to put that first? What would it look like to give to myself in the way that I've been conditioned or even created to give to others? But you began exploring like the male female energy maybe within
Mhm.
yourself, right? And allow that. Yeah. I mean, well, I'm just going to stop there. I have some thoughts about my own process, but what did that bring up for you just hearing it
Yeah, I
reflected
want to
now?
I want to hear your process as well. So I think absolutely it's male and female energy, or it's polarity. Like, I believe that what we're learning to do is be masters. I was going to use that male word, master. What? So but I don't want to say mistress. Why are there so many weird words for women? And I don't want to say goddess. I mean, I don't know. So, but I do believe that we are growing up
Yes.
into this more expanded spiritual um portion of who we are.
Yeah.
And not that our spirituality is severed from our body, but that's what you were talking about. That's the shame that comes back into
Yeah.
it again, is yeah, women are not supposed to take what they want, and if you do, you're a bitch. And other women, you walk into a room and we all have really sensitive intuition, and we know immediately who we're competing with, who our friend is going to be, who's going to undermine us. Like, women have very complex
Yes.
relationships. You can't trust anyone because
Yeah.
I mean, think of the harems in the
Yeah.
ancient times, like we're talking about Greek mythology. um if the king comes and chooses her over me, we're probably not going to really be friends anymore unless I'm chosen for the harem too, and then we're going to bond, right?
Yeah.
So we're
Yeah.
bonding around all this bizarre shit. It's just like craziness. But
Well, and even you bring up like a harem or so, something where we're genuinely threatened. Like there are times
yeah,
that could be a very threatening experience for a woman's livelihood, her security, whatever. but we carry these things in our biology, like we still live often like we're in a real threatening situation, a life or death, right? And that's the way it shows up in our body chemistry, and we feel this sense of like, I need to protect what's mine. One of the things that's helped me a ton, this isn't where I was going to head before, but I do think it's all integrated and related, is it's helped me to recognize that when I'm actually in danger, or just when I have all the sensations of danger. And then allowing, like, coming present to my own body, calming my nervous system, being the parent within who reminds myself that I am actually safe, that I am okay. One of the things that's done for me, even with other women in all my relationships, this continued nurturing within myself, that I will have my own back no matter what. I lived at war with myself most of my life. If I'm honest, the person who rejected Lisa Michelle the most was me. I mean, I am 51. For the sake of this story, I lived at 38. I started coming into some more of an appreciation for this woman. But at 38, I would say I started this process of reconciling to the woman within. Now I stand, I amaze myself in terms of my relationship with myself. And even in this more evolved place, the reason I think shame is such a pertinent part of this conversation is because that is the area that still will come in abruptly at a moment's notice, and I'm recoiling from myself within myself. And if I were to try to mine it for what's there, it's this ultimate sense that I will be rejected, abandoned, alone, like cast into hell, and hell being utter isolation. And this reparenting and reconnecting, like Jesus, naked on a cross, beaten, bloodied, no loincloth covering his genitals. We just can't handle thinking about the Savior totally that naked. But that's how vulnerable, to literally exhaust shame. And at the end of shame is utter connection with the Father, with the Creator, with the Maker. That is that's my path right now. Like, ultimate vulnerability, knowing that I am created for connection, and shame will always come to isolate me. So, full circle, when we're thinking about the narcissist out there, this is why it's bothering me in our culture,
Mhm.
because we are literally telling women, continue looking out there, and it's feeding the energy away from a woman's creative power, joy, freedom, curiosity, like the expansiveness of the beauty of each of us, to embrace one another. No, we're too precious to keep giving all of our attention out there. Sure, it could start that way, because we need that connection of, I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
Something is happening. We do. I want that for us. But to keep it out there keeps us disconnected from ourselves and each other. Oh no, it's yucky.
Yes, absolutely. You said that so beautifully. And so you articulated it perfectly. It At the end of the day, this is what it's about. It's about, I mean, the healing comes when you realize that no one will give it to you.
Yeah.
You give it to yourself,
Yes.
and you give yourself everything you need. Because why? Because you can do that, because that's how we were created. I mean, everyone has different religious orientations or beliefs or whatever, but any way you look at it, from any perspective, this is the gift we give ourselves so that we can be completely who we are.
Yeah.
And it's really not, it's kind of like, I just feel so powerful about that this conversation is so powerful and timely, because it's almost like we've created these pathways within our culture for people to stay in these roles where they are disempowered, and they just live and die there.
It's
And then
reinforcing.
it's
Hmm.
totally reinforcing. And then you gather around you. It's like misery loves company. So all of a sudden you don't feel, because to your point, Lisa Michelle, isolation is hell.
It is.
Everyone experiences isolation as the ultimate hell. And so any place we can find to connect and feel like we belong, we will stay there too damn long.
Hmm.
And this is no different than the entrepreneurial journey, by the way, because this is primarily the women I work with, entrepreneurial women, okay, the women, and it's you launch out on your own, and the only reason it takes so damn long to get there is that you keep looking for permission from everybody along the trail who doesn't have a clue who you are or what you want or where you're going. So,
And Michelle, the other thing that happens that keeps it perpetuated, that's so relevant to this conversation, is is you're looking out there for other people. Why? Because you feel like there's something wrong with you. So I got to keep looking out there, right? And this idea of coming in to embody our own beauty, our own power, our own selves. Yes, now when I hire Michelle, I'm not hiring you from the shame place of deficit, like there's something wrong with me, Michelle, fix me.
mhm.
If I hire you from that place, my journey is still just as slow. I hire you from the place of I want to align myself with a woman who's gone before me and who's lit, right? Like in the community, there's healing. But I'm not coming from the out there fix me solution. And if I do, then I can engage that healing process where I'm being reintegrated with my own power, beauty, right? Like,
Yeah, and yeah, go ahead.
nope,
No, I just
passing it
had this
back.
other thought about the reflection. So coming back to that reflection idea, and the fact that I believe this is fact, that the world is mirroring back to us
Yes.
what we believe. So
Yes.
when you get to that point,
Yes. Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
it's a constant progression, because we are born to expand, right? And it really, really is, it's the beautiful bird coming out of the egg. It
Mhm,
really is the beautiful butterfly coming out of the cocoon. You
mhm.
cannot drag your caterpillarness with you.
Yeah.
Like, you just can't do it. The egg that nurtured the bird was a really solid reality, and it
Yes.
allowed you to get to that point of self-awareness. But the moment you realize you have a wing or two, you're designed for something greater and more
Yes.
expansive. So when you're around, I love what you said about that. It's our ability to then receive from a more whole place. And I mean, think about the think about sex then. Like, then it's not so much this, like, the forbidden, I mean, there's a lot of really fun, exciting, like addictive energy with all of that stuff, right? That's what our culture shows in every film. It's always like the hidden, the secretive, the disallowed, the shameful. But what happens when we're able, it's exactly to your point of working with a coach or whatever, when we're able to come together as human beings, more integrated,
Yeah.
complete, how much more can we share and give and grow and create, because everything is a creative process. What is that like? That's
Yes.
where the curiosity comes in, like not the fear of contracting into what was the misery of the past or the complacency of the present, but we are moving towards something much more creative out of curiosity and
Yeah.
self-responsibility.
Yes. And emotion is momentum. Like without emotion, none of us would move. We need emotion. And yet, to navigate the emotion. And one of the things that I wrote down in my journal was I dig into my shame to unleash my power. There's something, so to your point about being with a coach or in a place where you can make yourself fully known in a place that's safe and find that in that place you are loved and accepted, it helps us to compost our life, all of it. All of it goes into the nutrient so that you used egg and butterfly. I keep acorns on my desk
Yeah.
so that the tree can burst out of the acorn. That's what happens when we embrace the parts of our lives that are hidden, but we do it in community because isolation is hell. And the parts of our lives that we're tempted, the parts of us, not just our lives, us, that we are tempted to reject, keep us disconnected from ourselves and from our creativity. And as we allow that to be composted into the nutrients of the soil from which we grow, we really go as high as we go deep. We go as wide as we go out. And we're designed for community. I don't think there's any other greater joy I've ever known than feeling known and feeling loved, whether that's in a romantic setting, whether that's like our friendship, Michelle, but to be able to get out there. And it means that we're willing to go through the pain. Imagine a tree trying to make its way out of this. Imagine from the acorn's perspective what that feels like, or from the eggshell's perspective, or from the caterpillar skin's perspective. Imagine. Yeah, there's a breaking away. What we think is there to destroy us, like back to narcissism, we think that that situation's there to destroy us, but it's there to reveal us so that we can become. So when we see all the way back, when I see what I'm upset about, well, like what I allowed that I don't wish I wouldn't have allowed, now I can come into my adult, beautiful woman self and give myself what I needed. Stop prostituting myself for the please come affirm me, tell me that I'm loved, make me okay. There was a time when we were little when we needed someone outside of us to let us know we were okay. We're not little anymore, but littles live in us, and we parent our own self within us and give the actual nurture, love, compassion, kindness. We give it to ourselves. We link ourselves to other people that can speak and sow that into us, and that we actually create those kinds of communities. But we've got to be willing to be broken open. How else does a fucking tree get out?
I know I have to comment on two things so I don't forget. Well, first of all, the difference between us and an acorn or an oak or whatever, or a bird or a butterfly or whatever, is that you said it, we have to be willing. Like
Oh, yeah.
but here's the truth. Maybe or maybe not, like we will grow either through pain, from being pushed out of our smallness, either being pushed out, or we will become willing and reach for a vision. And then we will be pulled by that vision. Right. So
Exactly.
it's our choice. But I was going to say something you said. Oh, so nothing is as it seems. And
Mhm.
that's what you're saying, that nothing is what it seems to be. And this is why the conversation around this idea of narcissist, it kind of pisses me off, okay? Because it's like, why would we continue to linger by blaming someone else when you can give your, and oh my God, I have to have a disclaimer here. I know there is severe trauma. I know there are psychopathic people that are doing terrible things out there. And, I'm not discounting any, like, go get help, address it and all of that. But the level that I'm talking about here is at some point in your healing, there will come a moment when we ask ourselves, why would I delay my arrival?
Mm.
Why would I do that by giving you the authority to decide when I heal, or what that means?
Yeah.
Like, and this whole idea of the image, we're such hypocrites. Like, were we made in the image of God or not? Who gets to decide that for us? It's
Yeah.
already been decided.
Yeah.
So why not just accept that gift and then exert the authority over all these limiting problems that we're having, and like step into what we want or who we
Yes.
want to be.
Well, and one of the things I want to circle back to is when you talk about the trauma and the horrific things. I mean, I work with women that have been traumatized,
Yeah.
lit- uh, raped, molested. I'm sometimes amazed at the percentage of the women that I work with that have been molested and raped. For them to heal, they are still assuming responsibility for their own hearts. They're not taking responsibility for what happened to them. And maybe
Exactly.
that's a good distinction for us to make. It's still, in order for us to heal, like we literally are the only one that inhabits our own body.
Yeah.
We're the only one that's going to be with us all the way to the end, unless we count our maker. But I mean, humanly speaking, if I give my agency to you because of what happened, then I have basically resigned myself to live in this feeling of, I get tired of overused phrases like disempowered or whatever, but there's something useful there. It's like we feel
Yeah.
like we've lost our own sense of possibility,
Mm,
opportunity,
absolutely.
right? It's all waiting out there. And I work with people that are grieving. When someone dies, people feel this sense of like, well, now I can't get from them what I needed. I can never get this met. And what we don't recognize is that we actually have the power to complete what was left unfinished in that relationship, for the tending to our own hearts, for the becoming. And all of us long for that. If we just are, we all long to, there's that inner spark that says, yes, I want to create. I want to, I am courageous. I want the joy. I want the freedom. I think that's within all of us. I just think it gets layered with piles of shit and we lose sight of it. But that's why we're having the conversation about narcissism. Because it's like, hey, does this exist? Yes. But if my focus remains out there, then what the heck's happening to this beautiful woman? What's happening? So yeah, taking the responsibility for what happens.
Yeah, and I think that's another doorway that that allows shame to come in, because
Yes.
when you get to I know there have been, I mean, this has kind of been ongoing in a lot of areas of my life, and we experienced this. I mean, think of your fitness journey, for heaven's sake, the shame
Yes.
of realizing, like, oh, I didn't do that thing I said I promised I would to myself, like go work out or go for a walk or whatever again. And it happens with business all the time. Like, I've never really had a job. I've always, well, except like years ago when I was cocktail waitressing, and I was terrible at it. But I I've always had businesses. I've always just done my own thing. And so you get feedback right away, And so in that arena, I don't have that same shame. I mean, sometimes to me, it's like a puzzle. It's like, okay, that didn't work. Try that. That didn't work. Try that. And then you find the pieces that fit and that you're impacting people, and, you just do it. But there definitely have been times in this healing journey for me where I would be like, oh my God, I'm so ashamed. Like, I was not taking responsibility for myself. Like, I am literally waiting for someone to tell me that I'm okay, or that I'm like pretty enough or good enough or I deserve love. I totally put that out there. And when you realize that, it's not something like, for me to sit here and say this right now is probably a miracle. I never would have admitted that like 4 years ago. I would have been like, no, I'm fine. I think I'm great. I'm totally confident. I
That's
don't need anything.
exactly what I was talking about when so there's one thing I want to put a pin in what you said, but I was exactly talking about when I use the phrase prostituting myself. It's really
Yeah.
like, let me put myself out there and hope that you give merit to whatever part of me.
Yep.
I need to know, and that's what I meant. It's like I wouldn't give myself what my heart and soul required. And I've come to the conclusion that part of that was that I didn't acknowledge the pain that I had carried. It's interesting, Michelle, because I too was a woman who did years of therapy, and
Yeah.
somehow
Somebody's rich.
there was something in the grief work that I did that gave another, maybe it was the way that it all came together. I don't know, but that a reconciling to myself. Um, the one thing I wanted to put a pin in really fast is just the idea of the difference between shame and guilt and how we can discern them. So it's like I might have guilt over the fact that I didn't go work out,
Yeah.
but where shame would come in. So that's about something I said to myself that I would do and I didn't do it. Okay, that's an action. That's where guilt comes in. Where shame comes in is I didn't do it because there's something wrong with me, or this is just the kind of person that I am. I break my promises to people. And so it sets up this sense of despair, like all is lost, like I'm not going to be able to pull this thing together. It's interesting that you brought up how shame doesn't show up for you in the entrepreneurial journey. And maybe that's because it's so well practiced that because shame will never, just so that everybody knows, shame doesn't look for solutions. That's how you can tell it's shame.
Oh,
Guilt will look
that's
for
so
solutions.
good. That is so good. Shame, that is really a gem. Shame doesn't look for solutions.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, because
Guilt will figure out, well, what could I do different?
oh, I
I
love
guess,
that. I've
yeah.
never heard that before. I just absolutely love that. So yeah, I get it, because
Because
it's
shame is a
hopeless.
pronunciation, like it's a declaration of who you are. It's the gauntlet is fallen and judgment is upon you and you've been condemned. So that's why shame
Yeah,
doesn't look for
it's a
solution.
really internal, deep identification that
Mhm.
there's something intrinsically wrong with you. I get it. Okay, yeah. So that's going to be a whole nother conversation because that is why it's so painful to look at. And that's
Yeah.
why we want to call this person a narcissist, because you know what? The first thing that happened, the first sense of relief is you identify it, and then you have a bunch of friends who are empaths. Because where there is a narcissist, there is an empath. And then you get to be, oh, I'm an empath. And that means all these, it's almost like
Yeah.
all the
Yeah. You
nice.
get all the cuddlies.
Yeah. And then you start realizing, wait a second,
Yeah.
is that really
Yeah.
beneficial for
Look,
anybody?
if the empath always gets the short end of the stick, is this really the stick I want to be carrying? Like, is this?
You don't want either one, right? You want to be, like you said, a parent. You want to be an adult. We all just really want to grow up so that we can experience healthy, holistic interactions, not only with each other, but that's all businesses. Business is the carrot. When you start your business, it's really just you growing.
Yes.
That's everything. So, yeah, this is a really interesting conversation. I know we could go on for hours, and
Yeah.
this
So we'll just
might
have
even
another
have to,
one.
yeah, I think this might even break up into two. I'll have to take a look at it, but yeah, we should definitely talk again. And it went in a much more profound direction very quickly than I anticipated it. And isn't it interesting? This is my last thought, and then you can share something and we'll close it down. But to the idea of shame, how did you say that again? Shame doesn't seek solutions.
Exactly.
So shame has to have the external, right? So you have no control
Yes.
because you're already condemned, right?
Exactly.
You're burning in hell already. So you just don't want anyone to see it.
Yeah.
And oh, I kind of lost my train of thought. Um, I think, oh, I know what I was going to say. We we've been able to talk about this and go deep and pretty profound conversation, I think. I hope it's helpful
Yeah.
for someone. But it's amazing to me how when I was in this, you couldn't have paid me to do this. I was making videos for myself. I still have those because I had to talk. I had to talk to somebody. And
Oh,
and and honestly, I have a whole thing of like talking to different people in my life because I needed to heal.
yeah.
And when one day something that helped me wake up was, I can't remember the guy's name, but he's a really master marketer, and he's a big narcissist on YouTube. And I must have blocked out his name, but I wound up in his marketing funnel. And I'm a marketer. So I'm like, how did I get in this marketing funnel? Because I drank his Kool-Aid, but he was all about like empowering yourself to get back at the narcissist. So we do have this will be for another conversation, this prevalent idea in our culture that we hurt people to get our power back. And that, the saying hurt people, it's because you don't know how to give it to yourself. So you hurt someone else and you steal that power. And
Yeah.
it's crazy. So anyway, those are random thoughts. I was trying to wrap it up, but I went in a total crazy direction. So
Well, I'm glad for your direction because it really, and this will be my final. I love that you ended on this idea that we think to have power, we take it from somewhere else.
yeah.
And Anyone who knows me, Michelle, knows that my journey is around compassion. I genuinely believe that compassion is the path of integration, and compassion for one another, compassion for the self. And yeah, I want to be careful because compassion does not mean lack of boundaries. Compassion is wise as a serpent, gentle as a dove.
Yes.
Compassion is very centered and integrated in and of itself. I think that having my power, and I can feel it in my body right now, is standing in love, being rooted in love. I really love that you framed us early on in a benevolent maker, right? A creator that gives us value at the outset. And my journey is returning again and again to that loving relationship outside of me and inside of me. And then that enables me to reach out to you and others in the vulnerability of love. And I guess where that finds its completion for me is the idea that I will always have my back, and then God will have my back. And I'm continuing to tether myself to, Lisa, it's okay. Yes, Michelle might one day decide that you're a raging bitch and reject you. I am still going to go all in on this relationship, because if that were to ever happen, I'm here with me. We all know that, yes, we get rejected in this world. We do. The answer is not to retract and hurt you. That still leaves me isolated. I don't know. Compassion is the key. I already started going on another place, so I'm just
Yeah.
going to rein it in.
No, and it's fine because this can turn into two videos. It's fine. But I think that it's really when you were talking, I was remembering I was looking everywhere outside of myself for healing, right? I mean, I went to therapists and acupuncturists, and I took all kinds of supplements, and I mean, exercise. I was doing everything because I just wanted to feel better. And I wanted to survive. I had lost my, for the first time in my life, I didn't have that survival instinct.
Yeah,
And that is terrifying. And
it is
that is
absolutely
related,
terrifying.
that is definitely related to shame.
Yes.
But what I wanted to say is, I cannot even believe how many people told me that if I hurt the other person, that would solve the problem. I mean, not only, I mean, professionals,
Yeah.
therapists, counselors, friends. And the fact that I resisted doing that is a flippin' miracle.
Same.
But yeah, we actually had talked about this, but I think it is the essence of everything, because
Yes.
what I kept going back to within myself was, who am I? I am love. And if I choose to act outside of my own integrity, and it seems really obvious now, but when you're inside of it, it's a big deal. Like,
Oh no.
I just remember thinking, if I choose to act outside of my integrity, not only do I compromise everyone else, but I compromise, my relationship with God, and
Yeah.
my relationship, like my potential to really be who I keep thinking I might be able to be, like the
Yeah.
best version of who I am. And I have to kill my dream. I have to, I have to believe that love isn't real.
Yeah.
And I was never willing to do that. And so I would cling to this little thread. It's like when when you're building a business, you like cling to this little thread of, can I really do it? Can this dream come true? And you go through all this shit and you try things and then you fail and then you win and then and then finally you're profitable and then you sell the company and then you're like, oh my gosh, I was right. Well, trust your gut, trust your heart, trust that divine element within, because that is the only truth.
Yeah.
Everything else out here is just information and it's secondhand. So
Well, there's something that you said that I really want to pull the thread on that. Well, it's the thread that's in me. So when I moved out, um, this was after 20 some odd years of marriage. Initially, my belief system was that I forfeited my right to ever be with anyone else. I didn't make this marriage work. In my mind, I thought that I didn't have biblical grounds for divorce. That's since all just been unwound for me. But at the time, I felt so deeply rejected,
mhm,
even though I'm the one that moved out. The despair over what I wanted to create versus what I did create. I remember looking at my body naked and I was like, no one will ever see my body ever again. Like and I can't even explain it, but then this thing happened, this thing. Um, I I needed to know that God's unconditional love was real. And at first, when I moved out, I was so in the wake of my pain, but all these miraculous things were happening. I was kind of surprised at how heightened my intuition and my faith drive, and like there was just stuff going on that I was kind of amazed by myself. And I cried a lot back then. And then and I was so alone. I mean, my boys stopped talking to me, Michelle. I It was a life like I could never, but I stopped going to church. I didn't feel like now I was single. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what this meant. But the part that I wanted to share with you is that at some point in that journey, I wasn't worried about what I was doing anymore. I wasn't measuring my actions. I wasn't asking myself, is this biblical? I wasn't asking myself, do I have permission? Like, and I'm not I want to be careful. I'm not saying, "Hey, this is how you do it, people." No, I'm not giving a prescription. I'm saying what I did was I just started taking all the yolks off. And I just remember saying to God, and the scripture, "Do not put the Lord your God to the test," is coming to my mind, and I that scripture's there, but I remember saying to God, "I need to know that you love me no matter what." And I guess I'm just laying it all on the line, Lord. Like, does this get me rejected by you? And I say this, I mean, eventually I started dating a man that wasn't a believer. Um, Later, I found out that he was married, and I'm not coming to give excuses. He wasn't living with the woman. They hadn't lived together in many years, but I remember this whole like journey of, and I guess it was putting the Lord my God to the test. I just wanted to know if I could be loved and just be however. And I will say, full circle, I walk in a more intimate, loving relationship as someone who is held and loved and cradled and wants my whole allegiance. Like, not just wants, my whole allegiance is to my God, but it's so much less. I don't want to say it's not transactional at all. I just want to say I live in such a less transactional mindset, because that's the thing, is what we don't recognize in even our relationship with God. Like, we come to God however we actually are, and I had pretended to be a way that I wasn't, because I lived in so much shame. I didn't know how, I didn't even know who I was. The first counselor I told you at 38, she told me, you probably don't even know your favorite color. I wanted to strangle her. You know why? Because she was right.
Wow.
I was 38. And I'm like, what? I think it's purple. Is it purple? I still hold that purple's my favorite color, and I still
That's
have this
that's
nagging
so
whisper, like, is it
interesting.
really? I don't know.
But okay, so the thing is that if we can accept the fact that the narcissist, which is how this started out, that we don't even know what that person in our life is. Like, we've basically created these scenarios outside of ourselves to heal what needs to be healed within, right?
Yeah.
So we can't hold them to these devilish versions, these evil versions of themselves. We've come to that. Well,
No.
and I don't want to get too deep here. I mean, like, we're really going, this is really interesting, but um, I mean, we have all these concepts of God. So, and then we judge each other for each other's concepts of God. And we judge each other for each other's experience of God.
Yeah.
and that is silly. It's
Yes.
it's like another silly waste of energy, because everyone, just like, I mean, you were talking about rising together in community and healing in community. I completely agree with that. And then there are moments when you're shaking that last bit of eggshell off of you, or you crack what is it that cracks the acorn open? Okay.
Yeah.
And it's not other people pulling on it, right?
Mm-mm.
It's you expanding so much that it falls apart. And that's because that's who you are truly,
Yeah.
intrinsically. The shame
Yeah.
is not who you are.
Mm-mm.
And that is God.
Yeah.
That is God. So if we can even allow that to be enough, then we know that the seed of this perfection is inside of us. And
Mm.
we can just kind of hold on to that and go and trust
I love
that.
that. Just hold on.
I mean, really, this is like what I said this in my more magical morning Monday thing, because I didn't think anybody was watching those videos. And then I didn't do it last week. And I got like just like 5 messages, but I was like, if 5 people are listening, I will do a how to make your Monday morning magical video every Monday. And all I could think to say was, here's your wand. Because if you can start with the foundational premise that the fact that you exist in this moment is an absolute miracle, then you're pretty much good to go, because that means you are the magic wand. It means
Mm.
you within you contain all of the miracles, all of the magic, and be on your way. Like, that
Yeah.
means you can choose what to eat, what to say, who to talk to, what actions to take, what to not do. I mean, guess what? Like, you're free. The prisons that we create, and then, we create these prisons in our mind, and then we call them narcissist, job, America, Canada, whatever. I mean, it's like I don't know, it's just sometimes it seems so silly. I mean, sometimes it seems so real, but
Yeah.
there are times when it just seems like so random.
Well, I think that's why talking about shame is important to me because I really believe that shame disintegrates and divides. It tries to put,
Hmm.
right? And like and so think about it, like how
Well, the
my
Christian community, wow. I mean,
well, it's so sad to me. But okay, really fast. Like let's say we get off this and then there's something I think about myself that incites shame of how I showed up, what I said, whatever it was. I was loud, I dominated, I interrupted, whatever way that comes in. What is most common when shame is there is to have a conversation with myself about what Michelle was thinking about me and all the ways I blew it without ever coming into the light and seeking community and connection with you that would blow apart the whole thing. And we're constantly isolating and judging and having these there's I'm thinking of Descartes, but like this sectioned off and everything in its own little category. And like you said, we do it in our concept about God, we do it in our I think we I think we think I hypothesize that we think our judgment is keeping us safe.
yeah,
And yet, what it's actually doing is creating the hell that we're most afraid of because it necessarily isolates me, not just from you. What I find so profound is that my judgment isolates me from me.
yeah,
So, back to the narcissism, when I'm judging you out there, I'm disconnected from my own pain. I've made everything about you. Well,
yep,
what the heck has happened to my heart? She's the one suffering. She's the one lost. She's the one not getting witnessed. She's the one not getting the healing balm that she needs to grow and nourish and, have that
yeah.
spark be fed so she just comes on out. That's why this conversation matters so much to me.
Yeah, and this is the reason for having the conversation is really just to shake up the landscape a bit. I mean, it's great, like it's great for us, right? And but for the rest of the world, if anyone else sees this, it really is just to pop another point of view in to this oversaturated us and them landscape. And I know I was lost in it because when you're searching for answers, you take what's on the menu and you try to make your appetite, fit the what's available. And and the truth is not that simple. Like at
Mm-mm.
the end of the day, we really do exactly what you said. We have to give this to ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's also where the freedom lies. So it's ironic because the thing we resist the most is our key to the kingdom or the out of our prison or whatever. And
Yeah,
we will
absolutely.
fight tooth and nail not to do it.
Yeah, no, I'm not telling her, I'm not asking him, I'm not coming right, I'm not sharing the underbelly of how vulnerable I feel. And so I just have this hypothesis that I think what happens is so many things happen to us when we're little that we genuinely have no control. We don't control our sex, we don't control where we're born, the socioeconomic status of our family, we don't control our gender, we don't I already said sex, right? There's so much. And then things happen. And when I'm saying this, I'm not trying to blame the caregivers, but we're all human. We pass our own shame on to our kids. We do all kinds of stuff. And then there's real atrocities that happen for a lot of children as well, right?
Mhm.
I, I don't know whether, I don't think it's all because we're socialized this way, but we grow, we maturate, right? We develop, we stand, we muscles, we grow. And then we're constantly, and we don't know how to process whatever pain we experienced or loss we experienced or what we needed that we didn't get that we experienced when we were little. And we grow up and maybe this is the entity of shame that, does so much of its damage, but we think we're supposed to be a certain way and we criticize and we judge and we're constantly treating ourselves like adults, and the little ones within us are completely forgotten, like there's no nurture or coming back, or and I think that's why self-compassion is so hard for people, and why the grief work that I do ends up allowing a person to also witness themselves and witness themselves when they were specifically vulnerable. But I
Mhm.
think when by doing that, it allows me to give witness to myself as a grown woman in my vulnerabilities. And I think it's because it's all integrated. I didn't just all of a sudden become a woman disassociated from every experience I've had to get to this place. I don't know if I've, but for me, connecting the threads all the way back to the little Lisas and then the growing, the preteen and the teen and all the things. And I've just got so much amazing compassion for that woman. But what that's opened up for me, I've got more compassion for my mom, for my aunt, for you, for other women, for young girls, older women, like men, like we're all carrying so much. And we're trying to make sense of it, and we make mistakes and we wound other people, but the thing that's made me the most safe human is being kind to myself. Look, there was a time that I was a dangerous woman because all my pain was out there. I
Mm.
was afraid, Michelle, to have children. I was afraid that I would be a physically abusive person, not an abused person, an abuser. The sheer blind rage that would overtake me at times terrified me. And I think it was the quest to feel powerful when I felt so powerless.
Yeah, I'm my one of my sons, um, I don't know if he still is, but he was really into Jordan Peterson for a while.
I love Jordan Peterson, and it was one of my sons that got me into him.
Yeah, he's really helping a lot of young people, especially the men, I think. But when you were just speaking, I was thinking how, first of all, I'm listening to you talk about this, thinking, I wonder who's listening to this that's going to start reacting right now, because these are the conversations that cause discomfort when we
Mm,
have pushed these things out of ourselves. And but Jordan has a great way of talking about how everybody is capable of everything. And it's ridiculous for us to say, like, in the Christian, and I mean, all religions, it's everywhere. It's not just Christianity. Okay, everybody has their dogma or whatever, their structure, their societal construct. But it's ridiculous to think that we can be good, not bad, that we can be strong, not weak. I mean, if the world is made up of these polarities, and the great, amazing experience, that everything is sexual, everything has these components, it's ridiculous to think that we could ever own one and disembody the other. Like, what a silly thing. And
I know that there is more evil, sheer evil that I am capable of. And one of the things that's helped me see this is just studies that have been shown. Like I think it's the Stanford study where they had some of the student body be prison guards and some of the
oh
student
yeah, oh
and
yeah, that was
the
crazy.
things that we are capable of, or just trying to imagine myself in a desperate, I don't know, or I mean, I am confident that the people watching their neighbors get carried off in Nazi Germany,
Yeah.
Were not like these vicious, they were people like me. So I love the honest expression of, or the honest, what do you, exploration of what I'm capable of. I actually think that being honest with myself about how much I'm capable of protects me more in those dark times to stay true to my values than
Yeah.
pretending that I'm not capable of. I remember my husband and I had an incredibly uncomfortable conversation because I told him that I believe that every human, including myself, would be capable of pedophilia. And he lost his ever loving mind. Well, that's not something I've ever engaged in. That's not something I'm simply saying I believe I think that I'm in more danger of doing an atrocity that I will not admit I'm capable of than if I were to be honest and say I'm capable of it. And this too relates to the narcissism thing. I think we do more damage in our relationships by thinking the narcissist lives out there and not being willing to look in the mirror of where the narcissist lives in here. If I'm willing to acknowledge her, then I can be with her in such a way that aligns with my values. When I see parts of myself I want to reject, I grab an object outside of me, I hold her, and I look at her. Now I know that that is not me, and I can comfort and give, right? Like now I have whatever it is I want to reject, and I bring her to me and integrate her versus her having me. I think, like, for instance, me holding my shame makes me, I would say, a more curious, courageous, creative person. But if my shame holds me, that makes me a person that is hiding and capable of way more evil than I would ever imagine. I don't know, it's something I'm playing with, but the difference between that holding me versus me holding it, I think is all the difference.
Oh,
And I don't know if I'm saying something Jordan Peterson would say. I didn't hear that from him, but yeah, that's something I'm imagining.
well, I do think that yeah, it's all the idea of everything is energy, and what you resist persists and what you repress has to come out, right? But we're identifying too, this is where I believe the divine comes in as well, because when we are identified with that image and that light, and that is integration, then you're not going to have this play of back and forth of like fighting and resisting. But that is what the entire world, that's what our experience is. It's this playing of energy with all this stuff. So I think the idea is to do this from as much awareness as possible, so that then we have more choice and we can actually choose to be vehicles for the divine. I
Well,
do totally believe this is possible. And that's a more integrated, creative version without as much fight, but it doesn't mean you're not going to play with these energies. I mean, you have to have male and female to have a baby, right? So if we're creating, you've got to have these different energies, but you're just not you're not being played by them, right?
yeah,
It's like you
yeah,
said, you're
yeah,
holding it rather than being held by it. And then you are the ultimate image of, like, if we're made in the image and likeness of God, then we have that ability to create. That's what
yes,
we're doing
yes. I'm,
constantly, every moment, every thought, every feeling, every emotion, right?
yes.
So
I,
yeah.
there's something Jordan Peterson says, and this is not what I was, it just got activated by something you said, maybe it was the holding it versus, but he talks about the dangerous man being the wimpy man, like who,
Yeah,
what is the, and then he's using, it's not the word humility, meek. He talks about what meekness is, and then it's this the idea that it's a truly dangerous man who has his passions under control. Like, in other words, he's holding them. But the weak man who's ignoring that evil lives in him, I think, and I know that Jordan Peterson says this too. And he says it far more, you know, I don't even know the word I'm
eloquently,
searching for, eloquently, but
eloquently.
there's something philosophically, it's far more deep and whatever. But that's the dangerous man who's is not awake to his own perversions. And that brings me where my mind was being activated when you were talking. Michelle, you made a passing comment about how much judgment is in the church, how much hypocrisy is in the church, right? Like, I added that word, but, and you know what I think it is? It's we're not willing to come before the Lord in the fullness of who we are and accept to find his gaze, to be known by him, be accepted, and to know him. And I think that when we're and John Calvin actually is one of the ones who said, look, we can't expect to fully know God if we're not expecting to be fully known by God. That means in all of it. That means in my deepest, darkest things that I would never admit out loud to another human, to come to God with that sense of, man, like, if I go right into the shame, I'm going to be met by benevolence. This is the kind of relationship. And I think what happens in the church is we're pretending for God and for each other. And that's why I think some of the sickest, most vile things have happened in the church, because when we're in hiding, that's where evil grows. So I am more and more and more comfortable with just getting naked in front of people. And not because I think they're safe. No, because I think I'm safe and God is safe for me. I'm safe for myself. I've got a place to land. I don't know. I'm getting very energized. I'm
Yeah,
gonna bring it back
exactly.
in.
Well, look, this is another whole entirely another topic of conversation, and I'm gonna have to end this here, but um, and that's because, like, there are a lot of different beliefs around these things, and
Sure.
secrets in the church, and I mean, you know, things that have been split off that maybe didn't need to be split off. And I totally agree with you, though. This is back, maybe we can bring it full circle to the narcissist, because that's why, that again, the polarities, it's rejecting those parts. If you're too empathic, it's because you've rejected those narcissistic parts of yourself. And those are actually parts that you need to develop and heal. And then we
Yes.
can become more whole. And then we are not victims or perpetrators. We are co-creators. We're jointly
Yes.
working together to build some.
Designed, joint heirs, co-creators,
Yeah,
in partnership, co-regents. Like,
yeah,
we rule together with the divine. That's by
exactly.
design.
I totally agree. And the
Yeah.
whole church thing, I mean, that's so complicated and everybody would be up in arms. I don't even want to go there. But yeah, I mean, I have very, I have ideas about that too. And everyone has their own ideas. And at this point, that's fine with me. Like, figure it out on your own. It's between you and God, your
Yeah.
God, you know?
Well, I'm definitely not coming to proselytize. This is my
Yeah.
journey and
Yeah.
my belief, and it really helps me make sense of my own experience, the role that shame plays and the role that love in healing, like the role that community plays, there's connection, creativity, and curiosity. In my structure, I am designed that way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's shame that wants to sever and disintegrate and keep us at odds.
Mm-hmm.
And what we all, I have a belief that we all long for connection, and we
Yeah.
all long for that creative exploration and this like continuing to take new ground as co-regents, explore new lands, create new, like, I don't know. And idealism lives in me for sure.
I love it.
Um,
Well, it should. It should. And shame actually has no power at the end of the day, simply because it can be dissolved with
yes,
love.
yes.
And love is the only thing that can't ever really be destroyed. So yeah, it's like, where are we focusing? And I really hope that this conversation is helpful to those who watch it. I think we're gonna have to chop this up into like three videos, and I really
I
have.
don't know. I listened to Joe Rogan, and dude, the last one he did with Jordan Peterson was 4.5 hours, and I watched the whole dang thing in a 2-day period.
It was 4.5 hours. Was that his podcast or was it a
Yeah.
video?
Oh no, all of Rogan's podcasts, they're like 2-hour minimums. And
Yeah,
I
I
think
quit
why is because
listening to
he's
him.
having conversations.
Okay, I quit listening to Joe Rogan because he went away from YouTube. And that's where I was familiar with watching him. And I don't know, it's really
He
weird
went away
'cause-
from YouTube because they were censoring him so much.
yeah.
It was right. So far, he's been
Oh,
able to
maybe
find
we
a
could get
platform on
censored.
Spotify.
Maybe we could get censored. Wouldn't that be great? Maybe we could get some hater to hate on it. No, I think I've been on a few podcasts, which I really like. It's really fun, as you know, to go on people's
Uh-huh.
podcasts, but I don't really listen to them that much. I rather, I prefer to watch, I guess I listen to YouTube in the background. It's just a habit. I don't know. I have all these podcasts. Okay, I don't know if I need to hear more Jordan. Honestly, I've listened to so many hours of him. But yeah, cool. I thought it was really interesting when Grant Cardone had Jordan on. That was a unique combination. I loved it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I would like to hear that one. I haven't listened.
I have the video somewhere. I don't know. Okay, well, I hope that we have provided value for whoever hears this. And it certainly was quite a ride. I had no idea we go that far, but I'm glad we did.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like I don't really have to probably ever talk about this again.
Oh, I don't know. But yeah,
Yeah,
definitely for the narcissism piece.
yeah. Okay, my love. Thank
We did it.
you so much. Yeah, this was crazy. It was great. It was um I think these were things that needed to be said. I don't
Yeah.
know people that are really talking about it in this context.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can go to any level on anything, but the prevalent conversation around narcissism right now is not really that helpful.
It's not
Oh,
serving women, in my opinion. I mean, as a starter, like we already shared, yeah, for validation initially, as far as for ultimate healing, no.
because it keeps going on and on, the same conversation of people trying to come out of the dark. Well, this happened to me. Well, this happened to me. Well, how bad did it really get? And it's in every Facebook group out there. Well, he
Well,
did
and the
this, he
final
did
thing,
this, he did this, he did this. Oh, but and then every once in a while there's a she, but it's always then she did that, he did this. Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
but what it leads to, Michelle, is women don't trust themselves. They're actually on high alert
Yeah.
for the next relationship and they're looking for it. And whatever we're looking for is exactly what we find.
Yes.
And so we need to build within ourselves the trust, the agency, the right? Like, hey, I'm gonna
Right.
do what it takes to figure it out, whether it's in a romantic relationship, starting a business, whatever. And that's the part that I think maybe that's the part that would motivate a woman to go, oh, but now I'm not able to be curious, courageous, or creative because I'm on vigilant alert that this doesn't happen to me again.
Yeah, and the other thing is this whole midlife thing, right? What I read in all these Facebook groups is the same story again and again. It's like, well, that part of my life is over. I don't know what to do now. My kids are gone, my this, my that. And see, we're identifying with a story that is sucking the energy. You cannot stay stagnant. Like you're either crumbling away or you're growing. And again, you will either grow through pain of being pushed out, or you will choose a vision. And then you
Yeah.
will be pulled by the energy of that vision, and other people will start to come into your world because, like you said, you are opening to possibility.
Yeah.
And the only the silliest thing too, I don't know why I keep being on these dating podcasts, because I'm actually not dating, but I know all about it. I'm an expert. No, I mean I have done it. And but for me it's the same thing. I know what I want. There's a menu and I will choose.
Yeah.
Okay. And I will not chase you, and I will attract you. And then I will choose you, and we will, play at whatever healthy level there
Yeah.
is, right?
Yeah.
But it's not about me putting myself out there and seeing who.
That whole prostituting thing.
Don't do that again. Yeah, it's like, I wonder who was gonna like me. No, 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 no. That's why you heal and you hold your shame or whatever, and then
Yeah.
you integrate and you quit giving your power to anything except you.
Yes.
No,
And
it's
you
not
know, I
about
just want to come
anything
full
but
circle
yeah,
because that's
we're doing like so many full
so
circles.
many full circles, but that's that sneaky place shame gets in. Because now shame comes in and says, see, you're giving your power away. See, you're and I just want to
Oh,
be
I
so
see what you mean. Yeah.
careful that now the
Oh,
woman
yeah.
gets
No,
judged for that.
no, no. Shame
And it's
on you.
like, look, there really was a time where in that clinical definition of the victim being someone who didn't have agency over what was happening.
Mhm.
We all have that experience that lives in us. And now, as adult grown-ups, we're taking that agency and we reparent those parts of us, we integrate them in. But the idea is not to shame your shame. And that's how sneaky
Yeah.
shame is.
Yeah.
That's how sneaky.
Good point. And the ability to impersonalize things. And that too. So I remember noticing that the narcissistic, like there's a spectrum of everything, okay? But that classic narcissistic traits have are like narcissists are really good at compartmentalizing, right? And that's why they have a lack of empathy. But empaths are terrible. Like everything, we take it personally, right? And there's no boundary, there's no compartmentalization. You look at me wrong and I'm in deep shame, right?
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
you can't, like, the thing is, you just learn and you just get a little stronger every day. And you just like, if you have too much narcissism in you, you have to want to heal. You have to be in enough pain that you're willing to heal. And it seems to be that we're motivated primarily by pain for whatever reason. But when
Yeah.
you get there and you start on that journey, we were designed to heal, or we
Yeah.
wouldn't,
We're,
or there would
we're
be
literally designed to heal.
yeah,
It's just the body does everything in its power to fight for life.
yeah.
And we don't
So we're
tell it to.
good.
Yes.
So you can go out there and let them choose you if you're starting to date again, but I don't recommend it. I recommend you just say, oh, there's a menu for me. Like, why not be playful about the rest of our lives? Why not just set the precedent? I'm here to play in God's beautiful garden, and I'm going to trust that I'm a miracle. Like that alone would kind of change the game for your
Yeah,
day, the next 10
absolutely.
minutes or whatever. And then if somebody rejects you, I mean, if you've been in sales, like I've been through this so many times, I don't like, I've just been rejected my entire life. Never occurs to me that the next one isn't gonna, I don't know why. I always just think the next time I'm gonna win,
I
because that's
love
just how sales works, and dating is the same way. Like, you're gonna meet, I don't know, I just always met really nice guys, honestly. Um, they're just, a lot of them were married. So that's always a problem. But it doesn't mean they're bad people. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean that just because people show up in their stupidest form when they're dating doesn't mean you have to hate them. They could become your friend, or they might have a sister or brother. It's like when you're prospecting in sales, you don't assume everybody is a loser. If they don't buy from you, it's like, well, who do you know that I might be able to be of service to? Dating is the same thing. Yeah. It's like, yeah, I don't really want to see you again, but who do you know? Who do you know that I might like? I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Do it however
I
you,
love it. I think
everybody
it's
can
playful
figure
and
it
fun.
out. Actually, go hire my friend Carrie Brett. Do you know Carrie?
Is
She,
she the person whose podcast you were on?
yes.
I
I've
did.
been on her podcast twice
Yeah,
regarding
okay, because I listened to you on her show, so I don't know Carrie, but yeah.
she is a dating coach extraordinaire, and her podcast is worth listening to because um, the woman who is just on there is like this Beverly Hills psychologist.
Okay.
And I don't know, it's just kind of fun to listen to. You can listen to others date if you don't want to date yourself. Yeah. Okay.
Married, I'm not
This
dating.
is getting
I'm dating
crazy.
my
So
hubby.
yeah. Okay. This has been so much fun. You are delightful. And I just want you to know everything that you've shared. I hope you feel good and safe and valued. And, this is a safe place. So
Yeah, I absolutely, and thank you. So good.
yeah. And it's really for the benefit of others. I mean, we're not just doing this for kicks. Kind of, kind of we are.
Well, it's fun to have the conversation, and I already know it'll benefit others. But it's like not even it's not even a question.
Yeah, if I had been able to watch, I mean, we've been extraordinarily honest,
Yeah.
and we really just allowed the conversation to lead us. And we're both here in really pure spirit. Um, no, we're not getting paid, or we don't have any sponsors or anything. um, you know, and so it's with a giving heart, and healing is available for all.
Yeah.
And yeah, So, okay, well, thank you. You're so beautiful. I appreciate and love you.
I love and
And
appreciate you
we will
too.
talk again very soon, but not for
All
such
right.
a long time. But no, I'm very
We'll set a
okay.
timer next time.
No, this was necessary and perfect. I loved it. Okay, God bless you. I'll talk to you later. Bye.